Why me? Why me? Why me, God? That's the constant question I asked myself as I was growing up. It may seem nice for me to stand here today and say, that is my name. I'm a lawyer. I run a law firm in Harare. It's called Vivian Matsa Law Offices. But it didn't seem like a possibility as I was growing up at some point of my childhood. Why? My story goes like this. I was born in a small town of Zimbabwe in the Eastern Highlands provinces. It's called Rusape. Some of you may know, some may not. I was there, the family was living there because my father was a civil servant and he was stationed there. So I was born there, but short after, my family moved to Marondera, another small town. I remember my life in Marondera. I was born in a family of 3. I'm the middle child. Life was perfect. Why? Because my parents were employed. My mom worked part-time sometimes. I was going to school. I remember playing in the streets, playing some of our popular Shona games. You know, we call them nodos and padas. Some of you who are Shona will remember those. Life was perfect because of all that. To me, that was a perfect childhood. But everything took a turn for the worst, if you may allow me to say, because I lost my mother. I was 9 years old, and I had a 2-year-old sister. So my mom died. May her soul rest in peace. So my mother died. Things changed. That picture I just showed you of my childhood, what I believed I was going to grow up under, it changed. My relatives, you know, politics, drama, family politics. My relatives decided a man could not take care of the girl children, so there was politics. Of course, I didn't understand at the time because I was young. So we had to move and go stay with my paternal grandmother. We went to Mutare. Some of you will not know this place. There's a place that is the highest densified in Mutare. It's called Sakuva. If you want, you can equivalent it to Harare's Mbare, to those who can relate. So I remember those days for me in my life as some of the saddest. I was very sad in those days. My sister was crying all the time. We had moved schools, and to me, I think I just know that I didn't used to hope. I didn't used to dream. What I used to dream growing up, playing, moving from my hometown, where I had grown to love, had changed. So now I'm here living with my grandma. My grandma was amazing. You know, grandmothers, she was amazing. We used to go out and farm, and you know, Zimbabweans, we love farming. We have our small fields in cities. We used to do that. We used to go living with my grandmother. I had moved. But then, all of a sudden, we had to move again. My aunt, my father's sister decided it was not proper for an old lady to take care of little children. She's old already. So let's move them. There we are, thinking we'd stabilized. We are moved again. We moved to another smaller, it's not even a town. This one was just under one of the rural districts of Zimbabwe. We moved there, so I went to school there. So every time you move, you change your home, you change your school, you have to adapt, you have to find new friends. So we move again. Now we're living in our Shona culture, we call them tetes. Now I'm living with my tete, my father's sister. And life looked like it was now normalizing. Maybe this is where I'm meant to grow up. At this stage, you don't really know. There's not a lot of opportunities coming up. You lost your mother, you're very young. You see other little girls with their moms, you tear up, I remember those days. But then my father remarried so that he could take the family back. So, yay, we are moving on. My father is married, but it still meant we had to move to the town where he was living. So we moved to Mutare. He brought the family back together. Now I have a stepmom. I have a dad. Life seems to be normal. Maybe it's starting to look like a nuclear family. I'm like the other kids. I'm going into school. We didn't have much, but I was starting to be content. We would walk to school. I remember I went to St. Dominic's Mutare. I would walk about 7 kilometers to school, to and from morning and afternoon. But it was perfect because I was back to living with my father again. You know, if you lose one of your biological parents, when you have one more, it seems like at least I have my father. Was living as a family. But in that moment that I thought life had stabilized, I lost my father again. So, you know, you have dealt with grief. You're sort of starting to move on. Young child traumatized, you've moved on, but now you're back again. Now I'm dreading, I'm like, oh my gosh, we are moving again, changing towns again. I think at this point, all hope was lost. I think I was just, most of my days I remember being filled with just loss, grieving. But then, it happened that my mother's biological sister, now it's less politics, there are no more, not even one more parent left. People sort of step back. So she had access to now saying, at least let me take these children. Now there's no more politics, family politics. She managed to take us in. For me, this was really amazing. So she took us in, now moving again. But this time it was better because now I had someone I could easily relate with. This is my mother's biological sister. So we have moved. She's taking us in, of course. No, you know, when you've moved a lot, you're still, you don't feel like you're secure. Maybe this is temporary. You know, you even mentally as a child, you feel like any day this could go away. Any day, this opportunity, that seems like it's an opportunity, but it's not yet a chance to, you know, to a normal life. But then, she proved to be amazing. She took us in, she took me to good schools. Now, I'm starting to look like a normal child. She notices this child has potential. She takes us to the good schools. For the first time in my life, I even went to boarding school. If you're a Zimbabwean, back in the early 2000s, going to boarding school was amazing. So you can tell even by the tone of my voice, things have improved. You're still not as hopeful, but now life is starting to shape up. As a child, you start to dream. As a child, you start to think of possibilities. So there am I. I'm living with my aunt. So now she's opening up chances, opportunities. I'm going to good schools. So even as a child, you start working hard. I used to work hard in school to make sure I impress my sponsor, my now parent. And regardless of that, you still feel like you're insecure. Sometimes you feel like, can I do this? This feeling of loss does not completely go away. It never disappears. But then what I appreciate about her is she sat me down and said, she would give me counseling, you need to think in the positive. This is your life now. It was hard for me this is my life after being in these places without my parents, going through the most. I had a second chance to life. This was an opportunity that was presented to me at an age where I needed it. I was a teenager, so life was starting to shape up. You know, being a teenager is hard, but being a teenager, then without both your parents, you can imagine. So my life improved. I can safely say I got a second opportunity to life. It meant every opportunity that came from that would be multiplied because now you're secure. Now you can dream. I managed to score straight A's in high school to make sure I also impress the person who is taking care of me. So I scored straight A's, went into university, got into University of Zimbabwe, and that's here in our capital city, Harare. So it meant coming to the city with the big lights. For me, a child who has been in these small towns, coming to the city with all the lights could have been great and so big, but I always had to constantly remind myself to be grounded. So it meant when you would have wanted to be a little bit extra excited, you'd step back. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Take your time. Yes, you want to do this, but it may just get taken away. This person can wake up and they're not there. What will happen to this opportunity? So I had to seize the moment, seize this opportunity. I worked hard. I had to make sure I passed my exams at first trials. First trials I passed. I graduated. I managed to get a good job, get experience here in Harare. I must say that was amazing because when you come from small towns, you're most likely going to graduate and go back. But with this opportunity of being in Harare for school, I managed to maximize on that opportunity to even get a job here. Gain more experience in the law field, practicing in Harare. Even then, later on, I managed to get married. Now I'm married. I have 2 beautiful girls. I'm a mom of 2, proudly. And I even then later on managed to go for my master's degree. So what am I saying? You get one opportunity, you use it to take you to the next level. Do not sleep on it. Get my master's degree. Now even the experience, when I talk, I know what I'm talking about. When I do not know, I use the chance to go and ask the people who know. When I get stuck, I need to go and ask the people who know. So recently, I even managed to open my own law firm. So now I manage a law firm. So I always to try to go out and reach out to the young girls, the young boys. I know in Zimbabwe we get a lot of aid, mostly in the rural areas, but when we go out there in the small towns, even in the big cities, young children, young kids, not just girls only, it's not for women only. They need to hear about the message that when you get opportunities, seize them, maximize on them. Because with a lot of things going on, it can be very easy for one to give up. I was very young when all of these tragic losses happened to me. I could have easily given up. A lot of the young adults are defaulting to drugs, but I'm just out here with a message to say, when you get an opportunity, do not slack on it, seize it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my message today. Thank you.